So
He's
tell me about when it first happened with mom and how that really changed your life in terms of the difference that you've made the last couple decades here.
You are so right about it changing my life. When mother was finally diagnosed in 2000, she was
2000.
misdiagnosed in 95 and again in 1998. Back then, they said, oh, she's just had some mild TIAs. She'll be fine. But now we know that it was those mild TIAs that were very likely triggered the onset of Alzheimer's. And so when mother was diagnosed in 2004, I'm sorry, 2000, dad called us all together and said, as a family, because I have 5 siblings, and so he called us all together and said, look, your mother's been diagnosed with this disease, but there's going to come a time when she is not going to know who we are, but we know who she is. And so we're going to treat her just like she is fine. And I have a quick little story I'd love to share with you about that. Because in the last 7 or 8 months of her life, she kind of sat in this fetal position with her head down and her hands together in her lap, and so I walked over to her and I said, "Okay, mother, I'm going to the grocery store. Can I get you anything?" She didn't move. I said, "Mother, I'm going to the grocery store. Sure you want me to get you anything?" She didn't move a muscle. So then I said, "Okay, listen, I'm going to the grocery store. You want me to get you some chocolate ice cream?" She went, looked right up at me. So makes me realize that our loved ones can hear what we're saying and can understand what we're saying, but their brain won't let them process it and respond to it.
Amazing.
Wow, that was a huge revelation.
Wow. So these are the types of things you're able to impart from your experience, now your insight, your own wisdom to other caregivers, through your speaking and things, to advise them on these are some of the behavioral tendencies that you observe in dementia to Alzheimer's.
Exactly. And it's really important for financial advisors because, uh, you know, people typically have the disease for a year and a half or 2 years before they're diagnosed.
Mm.
And because they become expert at not putting themselves in a position where they'll embarrass themselves, and it also depends on how open the family is around them. But but most people, when they're diagnosed, if the doctor's on point, they will say, "I'm sorry to inform you, but your loved one has Alzheimer's or some form of dementia. And by the way, they've had it for about a year and a half or 2 years because I see where they are in the diagnosis. I see the memory loss and confusion." So what happens then is within the next year and a half or so, the patient moves into the middle stage of Alzheimer's, and that is when the tsunami begins.
Mm.
Because now they've gone from having a pretty independent lifestyle the patient has to needing round the clock supervision,
Yeah.
not care, but supervision. Because the risk is they'll wander, they'll fall, they'll get hurt, they won't know who they are, where they are. And so they need round the clock supervision just to make sure they go for a walk, they go with them. They can't go for a walk anymore because they'll get lost. They can't really drive the car anymore because they're having problems with visual and spatial images. That's colors, shapes, forms, and distances, and trying to drive a car when you can't really tell that's a red light or a green light out there. My mother, my dad followed my mother home from the airport one night and she would use stoplights as stop signs. She'd pull up, stop, red or green, and then go on through the intersection. And
Wow.
after dad said, "No more car, mother can't drive anymore." So